The Inferno, home to the coveted Infernal Cape, the best in slot melee cape in the game. Considered by many to be one of the toughest PvM challenges in old school Runescape. Something that takes a significant amount of time investment to learn and complete. Content that has clearly never been mastered. Okay, what the fuck, guys? You all make it look so damn easy with your speed running and hundreds of KCs and running around with your Zuck helms. Let me tell you, this shit is wild. Achieving the Infernal Cape was by far the most difficult thing I have ever done in RuneScape, maybe in any video game. This was one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. It was full of highs, lows, and an overall sense of beauty. The design, the execution required, or lack thereof in my case, and my newfound understanding of the game all coalesced together to make it a true piece of art. It's forever changed how I see RuneScape, and something so simple also allowed me to reflect on life in an even more positive light than before. Now, it took me 42 attempts across 17 calendar days, but I'm so glad I dedicated the time and did it. It did take a lot though. Here is my Inferno story. Back sometime last year, I decided that I seriously wanted to pursue an Infernal Cape. I really do want to become a high-level PvMer one day, but I knew that to ever be taken seriously, I would first need to get the cape. However, at that point in time, I only had a dragon crossbow, god D-hides, and a blowpipe to my name. I knew I was not going to be able to do it with this gear. So I set out on a path to achieve the corrupted Bofa. Some of you might be asking what a Bofa is. Well, let me tell you. It is Bofa.
These nuts. Got him!
But for real, the Bofa is a high-level ranged weapon that you get by pulling an enhanced crystal weapon seed from the gauntlet, and then subsequently singing it into the bow using the weapon seed and 100 crystal shards at the singing bowls in Prifddinas. You can then corrupt the Bofa by using 2,000 crystal shards on it, making it so that it no longer uses charges when firing. Now, the Bofa is only good because of the crystal armor set bonus, which when worn in its entirety, gives a bonus of 15% damage and 30% accuracy. So not only did I need to farm a Bofa, but I also needed to farm the crystal armor. Now, the armor comes from using 6 crystal armor seeds, also from the gauntlet, with 300 crystal shards to make the helm, the body, and the legs. Unfortunately, you can't corrupt the armor at this point, so you need to farm additional shards for charging the armor. So I got to work and I learned the corrupted gauntlet. Now CG could be a video in and of itself, but we're all here today to hear about the Inferno story, not the gauntlet story. But I will mention that I spent over a month here doing only CG when I played. This was even after I spooned an enhanced weapon seed at 169 KC. Yo! Yo, bro, it fucking happened. Yo, what the fuck? Ooh, dude. Oh, let's fucking go, dude. Oh my god. But if you didn't notice in the clip, I only had one of 3 pieces of armor finished at that point, the body. Oh, I didn't mention the drop rates yet? Well, the enhanced weapon seed drops at a rate of 1 in 400, so don't get me wrong, I'm glad I got it early. But the armor seeds drop at a rate of 1 in 50. I did 321 CGs in total to complete this grind, but I never got the last armor seed. I got so sick of being stuck in the red prison, and I ended up making so much GP there that I just bought it. I hate CG now, and I'm going to dread going back in the future. The final piece of gear I would need was the Kodai wand. Now, I could have went and learned to do solo chambers for this, but I'm a main account, so who has time for that? After a brief stint at Nightmare with the boys, I just went ahead and spent my hard-earned GP on the Kodai wand. So now that I had the gear I needed, I set out to learn the Inferno. As someone who spends a lot of time watching Twitch, I'm no stranger to seeing the Inferno. I've probably watched 50 plus Infernal capes across time. I can even remember being there watching world first attempts when Inferno first dropped. I consider myself as having a good knowledge base to work off of, but boy was I wrong, there was a lot more to it than I expected. Before jumping in though, I did make sure to watch several hours of guides to get a feel for different strategies and techniques that could be used. Time that could never have been used better. Man, my girlfriend must fucking hate me. After feeling prepared enough by my knowledge acquisition, I decided to just dive right in and start attempting the Inferno. On my first day, I sent 6 different attempts. Of course, as you would expect, based on the amount of attempts invested and my performance across time, my very first attempt was my best attempt of the day. Oh, and if you're wondering, yes, I did make a spreadsheet to track my progress. So, I immediately made it to wave 30, where I would be taken down by the presence of our first main character. Let me tell you something. This little son of a bitch was the bane of my existence in the Inferno. It consistently gave me the most trouble out of any of the NPCs in there. You see, these are the melee mobs in the Inferno. Unlike in the fight caves, these guys don't heal things, but instead, Jal Imcots only use melee, but make up for it with extremely accurate and damaging attacks. If a Jal Imcot cannot reach the player, it will burrow under the ground and reappear next to the player to attack them. Every time I needed him to not dig, he would dig. Every time I needed it to die, it would tank a million hits.
No.
And the amount of yellow clicks I would get through them, it's not even funny. Deserved. Oh my fuck. Oh my god, dude. Oh. Oh fuck, bro. Actually, it is a little funny. But eventually, I did learn to get around my troubles with the melee. Primarily by right-clicking to attack instead of left-clicking, and by learning to use the safe slots more effectively. A couple of times, I was even able to execute the peak Runescape mechanical skill and freeze the melee after it dug to stand under it while finishing off another monster. Doesn't get any better than that. I finally made the melee my bitch. Of course, even though my first attempt ended at wave 30, I was still insanely happy with this, as I felt it was pretty far for the first attempt ever. Now, this was one of the first of many highs throughout my Inferno journey. Of course, this was short-lived. Another problem I found myself consistently running into was the nibblers getting me killed. So you might be asking, how in the hell did the nibblers kill me? Well, I'm glad you asked. Longest spawn in history. It's not good. Oh, fuck. Brain. No, I panicked. Fuck. This clip is only one example, but no matter how many times this happened, for some reason I kept chasing nibblers at inopportune moments, even during waves in the 60s, where you can typically let the nibblers go. Even when my Twitch chat would consistently tell me to ignore them. I'm looking at you, Previn. Now typically, to deal with the nibblers, all you need to do is hit them with an ice barrage, because you see, this will kill them 100% of the time. If only. Do you know how many times I didn't one-hit the nibblers? Almost every goddamn time that it mattered. They would survive a full blast of icy goodness, as if they were there taunting me, saying, "You're never getting this fucking gate, bro. Just give up." They were the cause of several of my lows throughout the runs. I'm not sure if you noticed, but in the clip I just showed, I was on wave 64. Wave 64 at 167 minutes into the run. Over 2.5 hours of my life thrown away because I was dumb enough to chase nibblers when I could have just let them chomp the pillar and been fine. You see, after you get the waves down for the most part, it starts to get incredibly frustrating when you lose your runs by only making little mistakes like this. You do start to get hit with some heavy lows, or at least I did. You start to wonder if the cape is even possible, and if you are ever actually going to get it. Now, the lows don't stop there. At some point, I was starting to consistently get to wave 60 and beyond. This was around day 10 and attempt number 28. Unfortunately, after a couple good days of attempts where I would see triples twice and Zuck for the first time, I seemed to run into a wall. On day 14, I had several terrible attempts. I died on wave 15, 29, and 31, waves that I hadn't died on in almost a week at that point. I started to believe that I'd just been lucky up to that point and that my luck had finally run out. I was incredibly defeated at this point in my attempts, and I didn't want to play the game anymore. Day 15, I would fall again at wave 65, a wave that's typically considered to be free, and then again at wave 60 on a second attempt that day. I felt like I was never going to make it back to triples or Zuck ever again, and I did consider actually giving up. This was further amplified by the fact that on day 16, I would only make it to wave 46 before giving up for the day. It's the absolute worst bow in the game, dude. Hello, fucking Christ. Yeah, I'm fucking done with this shit tonight. Now, it was not all lows, obviously. Each time that I made a PB, a personal best, or that I did something mechanically skilled, I did derive quite a lot of reward and positive emotion from it. Of course, these things come inconsistently, and it ends up being a roller coaster of an experience between highs and lows. But speaking of mechanical skill, this is what consistently motivated me to push through the lows. After starting to understand the waves and to make it through them more consistently, I recognized that even though I felt low about something, my deaths always stemmed from my own gameplay. It was always a mistake that I made rather than the game. There would have always been a way to solve or beat the situations that I was in and had lost to. only if I had executed correctly. So, it was something that I could do better and that I could overcome. While we're thinking about proper execution, let me introduce the final set of characters from Inferno Waves. I didn't mention them earlier because they didn't give me the same type of trouble as the Nibblers and the Melee did, and only gave me trouble stemming from my own mechanical failings. The Major, the Ranger, the Blob, and the Bat can all be entirely mitigated through proper positioning and proper prayer flicking. Not only that, but when you learn to off-tick a Major and a Ranger, or a Blob and a Major or a Ranger, you really start to feel the art that is doing the Inferno. I found that when my flicks were on, I would be in one of the deepest flow states I had ever experienced. It almost feels like when music matches a situation to send chills down your spine. And I have to admit, there were several times when I made a good play and felt this type of sensation. It was honestly exhilarating as much as RuneScape could be. Now, one of the most important parts of the Inferno, and where your ability to click the right things at the right time has to manifest, is Wave 68. At Wave 68, 3 Jads spawn and proceed to start hitting you in sequence. I died 2 times at triples before ever making it past them, and then I died a 3rd time at triples well after making my first Zuck attempt. It is one of the most cognitively demanding parts of the Inferno, because if your attention lapses for even a second, or you make a simple mistake, you're highly likely to get, I think the technical term is, sat the fuck down. But if you do get past triples, you make it to the final challenge. Day 17. Up to this point, I had Marcus, one of my good IRL friends who also plays RuneScape, offer to lend me his T-bow. He'd been watching all of my attempts up to that point, and frankly, I was struggling a little bit. And obviously, the Twisted Bow is an even better bow than the Bofa, especially in the Inferno. And up until day 17, I had really wanted to use the Bofa that I had farmed myself. I thought it would be poetic to do the entirety from a grassroots upbringing sort of thing. But, as my initial goal was to get the cape before Raids 3, and this day was quickly approaching, I decided to cave and take him up on his offer. But I think it ends up being just as poetic anyways. Not only did I borrow a T-bow, but at this point, I had also pushed myself and my bank value to level up my prayer some more. This was just to get the additional bonus point out of my restore potions, so each dose gave me an extra prayer point. I wanted to make sure that I had as many variables controlled for, so that only my gameplay would determine if I got the cape. I was juiced up to the max, and I sent the attempt. You know what? It was a pretty uneventful attempt, truthfully. I actually had no real problems on the waves that day, or on triples for that matter. But Zuck, well, Zuck is another story. Zuck for the first time is absolutely nerve-wracking. One misstep and you're out of there. Unless you have godly RNG. Boy, let me tell you, I had some godly RNG on that day, but you'll see. After beating triples, I recruited my friend Marcus, who had lent me the T-bow, to also call my set timers over Discord. You see, if you don't know much about the Inferno, during the Zuck fight, which happens at wave 69, nice, you have to follow this stupid shield back and forth, or else Zuck will just sit you down. Throughout the encounter, he will spawn what is known as a set, composed of a Major and a Ranger from the waves. This occurs for the first time once the shield has done its first full rotation, and then occurs again after 3 minutes and 30 seconds. You can pause this timer by getting Zuck's HP below 600. So first, what you typically do is kill the Ranger and then pray against the Major, and continue to get Zuck down below 600, where then you finally finish off the Major. After that, you will then continue to push Zuck up until the point that you get him below 480 HP. At this point, the set timer reinitiates and receives an additional minute and 45 seconds to it. But to make your life even harder, he also spawns a Jad, which you then have to kill while running with the shield before the set timer. But, being the absolute god gamer that I am, Jad was easy. So, I clean up Jad, I clean up another set after this, and then this is where things start to get interesting. After you push Zuck below 240 HP for the first time, he will spawn a set of 4 healers. To stop them from healing, you have to hit each healer, which they then proceed to turn around and blast the ever-loving shit out of you with random bursts of fire. Oh, and if this wasn't already obvious, you still have to follow the stupid shield back and forth, but even closer than before because Zuck's rate of attack speeds up at the same time. This is where my run got spicy. Okay. Here we go, boys. Don't noodle. There it is. Ooh. There's a timer. I'm dead. Oh. No, I'm dead. Oh, humble. I'm gonna save it in case I get I think I might just kill the major. Okay, I need to kill a major. Timer? No. No. Yep. Please. Is that it? Timer? Let's fucking go, dude. Let's go. Oh. Oh. It's finally over. Oh. Oh, fuck. During healers, I stepped out from behind the shield accidentally and tanked a 108, and then again, I tanked a hit that splashed a 0 on me. Undeserved, right? After this, I cleaned up the healers, but then had one more set to deal with. At this point, I was out of resources. I was trying to be cheeky and flick my prayers, but the adrenaline was coursing through my veins and causing me to panic. I misclicked and took a hit from the major off of prayer for only a 13. Majors are devastating off of prayer and Inferno. Of all times to get lucky and tank a hit like this, it would be when I am moments away from killing my first Zuck. Timer? So although you cannot hear my friend in this clip, when I was asking him for the timer the final time, he told me 4 seconds until the next set. It wasn't until sometime later though, when he and I were talking about this, that he mentioned that his timer was actually behind the in-game time by several seconds. In all likelihood, the very next game tick, had I not killed Zuck, I would have had a set spawn on me. And as you can see, I was entirely out of resources, I had no prayer, and low HP. Marcus also asked me if I had any shield charges left before that, and of course I didn't at this point. This is why when I mentioned before that borrowing the T-bow would be just as poetic. Had I not leveled my prayer and not borrowed the T-bow, there's a high likelihood that I would not have had the same DPS, causing me to have a much slower run and using more resources leading up to Zuck. I would have certainly run out of resources much sooner than I did in this kill. All of the RNG gods came together to grant me this cape in the most undeserved fashion possible. And as you probably heard in my voice, the absolute relief of finishing this grind. Nearly on the verge of tears in that moment, I had a rush of chills throughout my body like I've never had from playing a video game before. The adrenaline dump was unreal. I couldn't believe it. The grind was finally over. So, you might be sitting there wondering, what the hell was the point of the BOFA then? Well, I think I proved to myself that I could do it with the BOFA given enough time. I used the BOFA for 41 of my 42 attempts, and I even got to healers on Zuck with it once. But by borrowing the T-bow, it allowed me to have a wider safety net for my performance. It let me get to Zuck and still run out of resources. I was playing at the absolute limit of my abilities in-game at that point, and I only just scraped by to get the cape. Now, obviously this is just one KC, my very first cape ever. Some of you might have many KC and are sitting there like, whoa, you're making this way too big of a deal, man. And maybe you're right. I've already improved a lot since getting my cape, and I know the skill ceiling is far above me where I am now. Maybe once I've done several more KC with a sleigh helm, or maybe if I get the Zuck helm one day, I'll look back on this and say, oh, how naive I was. But what this experience showed me was that dedication and determination can lead to accomplishing something seemingly impossible. It showed me that there are truly no bounds to what I could learn to do in this game. It also showed me, in this 20-year-old point-and-click game, we can find immense beauty and art in the challenges that Jagex creates for us. I think that if people who have never taken on this challenge were to try, or that people who gave up because they didn't make it very far were to take up the reins again, they might too be able to find this beauty. They might come to understand the game in the same way that I do now too. It is an opportunity to push ourselves to the limit in our game of choice, and a chance to learn some general life lessons from it as well. After completing this grind, I took some time to reflect on the parallels in real life. Personally, I've completed a master's degree, and I'm currently pushing myself to complete a doctorate. I regularly train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a sport which is physically and emotionally demanding and punishing at times. And I also engage in other forms of physical activity, all for the sake of challenging myself and bettering myself. Oftentimes, I can get caught up in the same types of lows in these endeavors and have felt the same type of roller coaster as I did in the Inferno, in all aspects of my life. Everything in life will provide us with unique challenges and different states of mind in the moment. Often, though, I think we fail to see the beauty in these challenging things. We forget that we all surpass major milestones and often don't give ourselves enough credit or time to enjoy the reward. To some degree, reflecting on my Inferno grind in this way has made me put more effort into seeing the beauty in the things that I do in the rest of my life. And that is a form of art, to cause this level of introspection from a video game. While I'm not perfect at it, and I still have a long way to go, I'm glad that it has sparked this in me, and I'm glad to have completed this grind. The Inferno, although just a small part of a silly video game, can embody life's magic to some extent. For me, video games have always been a big part of my life. My family introduced me to them early, and some of my favorite memories, best friends, and favorite stress relief all come from my time spent playing video games. I think it's moments like this that are very rare in gaming, that show the power that video games can have, at least for some people. And I may be a bit of a romantic about all of this, but I hope now that you can also see some of the beauty of the Inferno. Or at the very least, at least it's a sick looking cape that make the numbers go burr.
Hey, you. What the hell was all that sappy shit at the end, man?
Huh? What do you mean?
Oh, come on. Video games aren't that magical.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe I was just hamming it up a bit and trying to make a good video.
That's cringe.
Sure is.
What do you mean, sure is? Is that all you have to say for yourself?
Yep. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. See you in the next one. you.